Hello everybody, the British summertime has at long last arrived, meaning we must commence that time-honoured ritual of finding ourselves a nice, affordable convertible for the summer. And truth be told, for the last 20 years, the decision hasn't been easier. If you want dependable fun, buy yourself a Mazda MX-5. It's the gold standard for a reason. You want something a bit more aspirational? Well, get yourself a Porsche Boxster. Or, feeling a bit mad? Well, a TVR Chimera could be the tonic for you. But what if, for whatever reason, none of those appeal? What about the BMW Z4? Sat there quietly at the back of the room, getting on with its own business, not bothering anyone. Is there anything that means you should buy one of these over one of those? Well, find out in today's episode of JayEmm on Cars. When it comes to the sporting saloon or coupe, BMW are often considered masters of the game, with the likes of the M3 the reference point in its segment for the last 4 decades. However, when it comes to convertibles, they really haven't had anywhere near as much success. In the modern era, it started with the Z1, arguably concept car made real with its funky slide down disappear doors. I have driven one of those. I actually quite liked it. Next, they did the retro-inspired Z3, a car I also have a lot of time for, but which does have some issues of its own. Then we got the Madcap Z8, a car that took enthusiasts about 2 decades to understand. And in 2002, they gave us this, the Z4. Where the Z3 was deliberately retro-styled, this instead looked very much to the future, with bold, clean styling that I think has aged fairly well. In fact, from the rear, I think this is a great-looking car. From the front, it's less successful, certainly here in plain Jane guise, though if you look at the spicy Z4M, that's a lot better. Like its forebear, there was also a coupe variant of both the regular and the M model. I owned an example of the latter, and that's a deeply, deeply flawed machine, but one that I think, in a lot of ways, is still quite wonderful and somewhat underappreciated. However, for a nice little bit of regular, ordinary, everyday summer fun, it's this you're going to be looking at, isn't it? The convertible. And over the years, BMW offered it with a number of different engine options, the vast majority of them being the classic BMW straight 6. My pick of the bunch being the later N52 engined 3-litre. That's a magnificent thing. Makes 265 horsepower, feels even stronger than the claimed numbers, and of course comes with that beautifully smooth BMW soundtrack and legendary reliability. Below that, and depending on your market, you also had a 2.5-litre version and even an entry-level 2.2. Still a straight 6. But when they facelifted the car midway through its production, they retired that engine, and in truth, it never really made that much sense, for it goes like a 4-cylinder and still drinks like a 6, and instead they gave us this, the N46 2-litre naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, making all of 150 horsepower. And while I'm not exactly saying this is a bad idea, there is an ancient saying, I believe Confucius, that goes, "Man who buy 4-cylinder BMW deserve everything he gets." After all, if you wanted a 4-pot, why wouldn't you just buy a Mazda instead? Well, there's a few reasons for that. Here in Britain, the number one is going to be badge snobbery. People, for some reason, are still put off by Mazdas, and I don't know why. It's a great brand, and the MX-5 is a fantastic car. Particularly if you're looking at the lower end of the budget, there you'll find plenty of the third generation, the NC. For many, the most unloved, but for me, the best of all. The story behind this particular car is a rather unusual one. It hasn't had many owners. In fact, I think it might be on only its second. It's sat right now on just over 20,000 miles, and I was due to review it a few months ago, but when I went to go and drive it, it belongs to some family friends, I saw that it was still on its original tyres. Yep. 2007 dated Bridgestones. So, before I drove it, I said, we need to sort that. And, conveniently, a company got in touch that said they'd like to help. And they're called Laufen. You've probably not heard of them, but they're actually an arm of Hankook, meaning they benefit from all of the same world-class R&D that Hankook themselves get. And what they've supplied me here today is a set of their new S-Fit 2 tyre, and they're very proud of it. Me being me though, I didn't want to simply just take the tyres and tell you they're brilliant without properly testing them. So, last month, I took the car over to a skid pan and decided to do a series of experiments, testing these tyres against the old Bridgestones and seeing how they fared in a number of different conditions. And I can tell you, the difference is dramatic. See, with those old Bridgestones, all I needed to do was put down one bottle of water, that's 5 litres, so a big bottle granted, and you'd lose traction. These, A-rated for wet weather grip I should tell you, were perfect. You wouldn't notice a difference. They were also quite a bit more comfortable than the old Bridgestones, which were run flats and were so stiff that when we tried to take them off the wheels, they wouldn't move. We originally had a mobile tyre fitter come out to try and get the things off, and they were stuck on. These, much more compliant. It means that the car rides a lot nicer, handy, because here the suspension in the Z4 is just a bit firmer than it really needs to be. Happily, the chassis of the car is actually fairly good, meaning scuttle shake is relatively minimal. Those who've been watching the channel for a while will know I am very passionate about tyres, particularly the age of them. And when it comes to reviewing any low mileage car, I'll always check the date code on a set of tyres. And every set of modern tyres should have one. If you're curious, on those old Bridgestones, you can see it, it's 0707, the 7th week of 2007. And part of the reason I was really keen to get these tyres is that with a lot of the legacy brands, though they are always developing new product, very often when I see a new tyre announced, it won't be in sizes that fit a lot of older vehicles. The range here is starting with a pretty good spread, including these, which are 225/40/18s, one of the most common sizes you'll find. They claim they are 15% better in terms of durability compared with their outgoing model, and they're also EV compatible, so you can put them on bigger, bulkier cars too. They are marketed as a performance-orientated tyre. They've got strengthened outer shoulders and a nice high grip compound in the middle. Having driven the thing off-road, I can tell you, they do work. But on the road, how do they and do the rest of the car fare? Well, let's drop a couple of cogs and find out. Those who worship at the altar of BMW will tell you there's nothing wrong with this car except the engine. Give it 2 more cylinders and you'll have automotive perfection. Well, I'm here to tell you nearly the opposite is in fact true. You see, I was as doubtful as any blue and white blooded Munich enthusiast would be. But this engine's pretty good. First off, it means the whole car's a bit lighter, weighing in at around 1,340 kilos, a fair saving over the 6-pot. Not only does it have fairly pleasing shove from low down, But when you get to the top 2000 RPM of the rev range, the limit here is 6.5, it really comes alive. It's fun, this. In a car another 200 kilos lighter, it'd be mega. Handily though, you've got a 6-speed manual, which here is actually pretty good for a BMW box. Medium length throw, but with very little play, it's nice, precise, and to the correct amount of notchy. That was another thing that came in with the facelift. Before, you could have a 5 or a 6-speed. There was also an automatic box, and you could even, if you were feeling particularly masochistic, have an SMG with one of these as well.
Perhaps it's simply the passage of time, but I even thought this engine sounded half decent. Particularly on the drive-by, there are faint whiffs of classic twin cam. And it's economical as well. The only reason many people would consider the 4-cylinder, and at least here it's a good one. This car on the motorway will do near 40 miles to the gallon. Even while having a little bit of fun, it was in the 30s. And that's decent.
As you might imagine, traction is pretty decent. It does have electronic aids, but they're just not necessary. Even being a bit of a hooligan, trying to get the rear to break free is not easy. With these new Laufens on, it's very grippy. Though sadly, in terms of steering response, it's not very good. And that's not the tyres, that's the car. The first thing assigned blame for this is always going to be the electric steering. But having owned the Z4M, which has hydraulic, I can tell you that's not really the case. I mean, first off, electric steering can be decent. Is it ever quite as good as hydraulic? Well, no, not really, but it can do a damn fine approximation. Here, well, I just don't know what BMW are thinking. First off, sometimes it feels like the system is just disengaged, probably because it is. There'll be a moment where you have to really fight the wheel to get it to turn. I haven't had it today, but the last time I drove this car, midway through a bend, it also feels like the power steering just takes a quick cigarette break. Only for a fraction of a second or so, but it's rather disconcerting. The brakes are decent, if unremarkable. In a bend, grip levels are good, but with that steering, interaction just isn't there. Visibility is decent, happily even with the roof up, it's not that bad. Because it's a fairly short affair, you can see a lot more out of this than you can in many other convertibles. Wind noise isn't too bad, and on the motorway you certainly can drive the car roof down, though, like most things, it's not the best. To go to that skid pan the other day, I took the car on a fairly long journey, and in all honesty, my major gripe roof down was the fact you couldn't see what the stereo said. It's the old-fashioned BMW business CD setup, and it's rubbish. Like my camera mount over here, which has really been upsetting me today, and I'm going to have words with later. The clutch too is frustrating, not terrible, but no doubt hampered by the clutch delay valve BMW love to fit to this era of car. It does a damn fine job of trying to ruin an otherwise decent gear shifting experience. In good news, the interior's pretty decent, nice, simple, elegantly laid out, though in typical German car fashion, they're needlessly stingy. So this one, for example, doesn't even have cup holders, though you've got the placement for them. Why? I will though give the car some credit because there's plenty of space in here, and the boot is a pretty good size for a convertible too. The roof's pretty slick too, though annoyingly you have to be stationary to operate it. And if you prefer a folding hardtop, you can always get the generation of Z4 that came after this. That's the E89, this is the E85. And it's also worth noting that after this, they never again built a Z4 coupe. The closest you would in fact get is the Toyota Supra. And you see, it's at this point in time where I'd love to be able to tell you, haha, the Z4 has a secret weapon. Because we all know that TVRs are unreliable, Porsche Boxsters potentially even more ruinous, and the MX-5 just not that desirable. Here you can have the reliability of an MX-5 with the power of a TVR or a Porsche. Well, not quite. See, if you go for the 6-cylinder, there is an element of truth to that. But the fact is, the Z4 in general does have a few issues. The 4-cylinder has a lot of them. But there is an upside to this. It's the fact that today you can pick up a car like this, but with some miles on, for £1,600. Yeah, that's not a lot, is it? And that's not a Cat S, that's not a Cat N, and it's not a car with 300,000 miles on. It was about 110,000. That's incredible. In this day and age, ladies, gentlemen, and everybody else, that makes this a bargain. My money would still go on the MX-5, or the TVR, or the Porsche. But if all you want is wind in the hair motoring, and you want something with a decent badge and a half-nice interior, well, the Z4 does have a fair bit going for it. Just do yourself a favour, and if you can, please try and get one with a 6-cylinder, because they aren't really any more money. They will, however, sound better, go better, and be more reliable. Do that, and all of a sudden, the Z4 does make some sense. And should you find yourself in any of those cars, and you do need some tyres for it, consider the Laufens. I know that most people won't, and I'm sure some of you are already telling me this, James, seems like an advert for tyres as opposed to a car review. Well, the truth is, it's both, but I did tell the good people at Laufen I would only promote their tyres if I liked them. And I do. They're very decent, and they actually suit this really, really well. So with that being said, I want to say a big thank you to them for sponsoring today's video, and of course to you for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye bye.